All right. I think it's time we got this started. How are we doing today, chat? I know I'm doing well. So, full disclosure, this has been a conversation that I have been planning on having with you guys for probably about somewhere around 2 to 3 weeks at this point. Basically, since we found out that this was happening. Originally, this was going to be a stream going over the Moonrise Set Championships. But then came to the realization that there was going to be no, like, official set championships for Moonrise. So that got scrapped. I will say the last time we did something like this, back with the Dallas prep stream, really enjoyed it. Kind of want to do this as a regular thing for more major events that are not just your standard premieres. So, and with that said, how are we all doing today? Your locals did Moonrise Set Championships? Yes, some locals did. My locals did one as well. And they used it as a way to give out, I believe it was the full moon mat. I know the full moon, there was a full moon mat and a hurricane mat. One got given out to like the point totals champion, and then the other got given out as like a at the shop's discretion kind of thing. Let me put that on mute, because we are going to be here for a bit. Okay, good grief, camera. Hi. Recognize me, camera. What is going on? One moment. Why is my camera not focusing? 1 second. I'm gonna do a quick camera reset. Why are you not working? Hello, come on. There it goes. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I know it was the full moon mat. Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So, with that said, though, this time they are actively doing a set championship for it. So why don't we go ahead and get into that here? So, FIRESTORM set championships. How much changes when you limit the options? Turns out they didn't really limit the runes, so we'll have to see. So, for those of y'all who are not aware, what are the FIRESTORM set championships? The set championships is going to be a tournament series run by store partners for Eleals using a limited card pool. So effectively, you are only able to use cards that were printed in FIRESTORM or in one of the FIRESTORM products. So that includes the starter decks. Any card that was reprinted in the starter deck is also legal, on top of what is legal for the main sets. No Laurels, right? Laurels was printed in the starter deck, I believe, so we'll get into that. There's exclusive prizing. The mat that you see on your screen now is actually the championship prize for first place. On top of Worlds qualifier points. You can get Worlds qualifier points from these events. You get 20 for first place, 10 for second, 5 for top 4. Granted, not a lot of Worlds qualifier points, but every little bit helps. There it goes. So, where are the set championships? Locals all around the US are hosting this. The list on your screen now is what stores are currently signed up to host and when they are hosting. Full disclosure, main reason I am doing this now is because my local store, Gigabytes Cafe, is actually hosting the first one this upcoming Monday. So I'd kind of like to get this going before it's too late. Bulk of them are going to be happening in that mid-July point of like July 11th to the 13th. So be aware of that. If you are hoping that your locals can do this, I would definitely check to see if they're already on the list. If they're not on the list, I don't know if it's too late. They may be able to still reach out and get on the list. I'm not sure. But yeah, this is the full list of who all is hosting. But yeah. Moving in, what cards are legal? So, everything that was printed in the main set of FIRESTORM is legal. So, everything that was printed, obviously. On top of that, everything that got a new printing in the full arts of FIRESTORM is also legal. Earthquake, Tsunami, and Eruption are those. 2 of those also got reprinted in the starter deck, so doesn't matter too much. Eruption is important if you because that was not included in the starters. Everything that received a reprint in the FIRESTORM starter decks, and we are going to go through those because there is a lot that got reprinted in the starter decks. On top of the fact that this is a note from Skyhawk, the starter deck rule does still apply for FIRESTORM decks. So if you wanted to play an unmodified starter deck, you are legally able to do that, but it does still have to pertain to the legal card pool. Basically, that means that the only starter deck that this is going to apply to that matters is the Zeus starter deck. You can play that, you can get 2 Elechick and 2 Race to the Top, so have fun with that. Beyond that, it's the standard ban list applies. Elechick is still banned, Earthquake is still at 1, yada yada yada. No Eruption. Eruption is in the format. It is reprinted in the full arts. Unfortunate. Anyways, Hestia starter gives us the Bears, Lavalith, Ursaden, Don't Poke, Chains, Blizzard, Cryoblast, Ambro, Resting, Helios, Pandora's, and Shield. The Poseidon starter gave us Sluggle, Glauby, Trotagua, Foamy, Plucky, Atlantis, Rise from the Depths, Rock in a Hard Place, Tsunami, Divine Healing, Nog, Alter, PTA, and Gaze. The Zeus starter gave us Volt Tempest, Jolton, Astrabbit, Titana Strike, Galaxair, Mount Olympus, Race to the Top, and Hurricane, and the Hermes starter gave us Ardbud and Varum, not Antitan, just Ardbud and Varum, Cockatoodle, Spectrus, Island of Aeolia, Tornado, Dense Fog, and Rise from the Ashes. So there are still a lot of options here. So what are our key differences to standard? The first one, and the one that quite frankly piqued my interest in why I would be really interested in playing this format, there's no Werepup combo! That's right, Werepup Moonrise and Full Moon are both not legal. So you could still use Like a Void Champ, and by extension Werepup Champ, but you have to hard ascend into it, and Werepup Champ is not going to be able to trigger as easily because getting a suppression off is going to be entirely reliant on either using Gorgon's Gaze or Dense Fog. So that's going to be a lot harder. Even still, I do think that that is a legitimate option that people are going to look at doing, just because there's a lot of things that you actually can do with this. But the big thing is that the staple Werepup combo is not going to be available for the FIRESTORM set championships, which I am very thankful for. Secondly, even though we do have Volcaries, champion of Hephaestus, there is no Hephaestus. There is also no Argo. So Fire Artifact, as it's known, is not going to be able to do what you want it to do. You still have access to Torch, Anvil, and Reforge, but the meta version of this is completely dead in the water. And Volcaries, which has been a pretty significant staple of the early FIRESTORM meta, is completely unusable, unfortunately, because both of its effects require Hephaestus to actually be relevant. So, no Volcaries. And this is the other huge one, is the fact that there's going to be a lack of 5s in the format. There are no natural... there's no Kinleo either. That is correct, Sir Tractor. There are no natural 5 attackers in the format. There is not a single 1-drop in the format that has the number 5 printed on it. Every single 5 in this format is an effective 5, a not natural 5. So something that can get to 5 by some means, but does not have the number 5 printed in its attack value. I should specify there. Our non-natural 5s include Galaxy Champ, Spectrus, which is the Daybreak Spectrus, mind you. Viserys Firestorm, which is what we have displayed here. Even though you don't have access to the main Viseryses, it is still a 5 because it does still get the plus attack. Plucky Champ, which is a 5 by way of Lyre of Apollo, which actually makes it a 5/3. And Fulgaris Champ, which can only become a 5 if you use Zeus with it. So that one's got an asterisk. So with that in mind, that means there's 4 like non-conditional 5s. Fulgaris is a conditional 5. Our 5 defenders are even more rare. Astrabbit, Titanostalk Champ, and Galaxy Champ are our only 5 defenders in the format. So with that in mind, the number 4 is going to be very common. Expect stats to be a very massive premium here. But like with that said, 5s are going to be rare, but very valuable. 5 defenders are going to stick a lot easier. Jolton can be a non-conditional 5. That is also true. I did forget Jolton. That is fair. Because Mount Olympus is in the format, Jolton is a non-conditional 5. So, let's talk staple Elestrals. But before we talk staple Elestrals, guys, please like the stream, share it around. It gets us going in the algorithm. I know that Trish has also been hard at work making some absolutely heinous looking some emotes in here. I think Fent Terror is still one of my favorites, but honestly though, it's been wonderful. Unfortunately, we cannot add any more emotes though until we get more recurring channel memberships. So if y'all want to help out with that, by all means. So staple Elestrals. Let's just get this out of the way. Lavalith is here because it was reprinted in the Hestia starter deck in a non-foil. It is still limited, so you still only get 1 copy of it. But in a format with limited options, the ability to drop a 6 that can blow up a back row is really, really good. Back row is going to go farther against limited threats. Can you emote on mobile? You should be able to. You should absolutely be able to. But yeah, this is one of the key strategies for the format is going to be fire, specifically because of bears. So you're going to see Lavalith around. Even if you're not on fire, I would consider Lavalith as a splash, namely because the ability to put a 6 down in a very heavily stat limited format is going to be a very powerful option, all things considered. Funny Bunny. There are only a handful of 1-drop removal options to counter this. Every single deck, I think, truthfully, every single deck should be playing Astrabbit this time around. I honestly do not think there is a single exception. A 5 defense wall is going to be a very massive threat, and there's only a small handful of 1-drops that can actually out-Astrabbit by themselves, namely that of Galaxy Champ, Plucky Champ. I know there's a few others, but I don't have them off the top of my head. Every time this thing re-enchants, you're going to be getting more value, and because of the lack of reliable removal Elestrals, this thing is going to stick. Rabbit should be in basically every single deck that you are playing right now. Thanks, Zeus Starter Deck, for giving us Rabbit for the format. Titano Strike Champion. So 4/4 stat line is already going to be pretty solid for this because, as we've mentioned, there is a severe lack of 5s. Also can be made 5/5 in a Thunder Focus strategy with Mount Olympus. As we were previously stating, Jolton is legal, as well as Mount Olympus. And there are going to be a number of face-up rune-focused strategies, namely those of all of the divines that are going to be focused on. Hermes is probably going to be a big one. Poseidon and Zeus are also going to be pretty big, I feel. Having access to Thunderstorm on a 1-drop is going to be really nice. There is no Eddie in the format, correct? That is correct. There is no Eddie, but there is Champ Galaxy, so... tomato, tomato, honestly speaking. Galaxy Champion, speaking of which, this is one of 3 reliable outs to Rabbit in the format. With the lack of 5s, Galaxy Champ is going to be a massive premium and should also be in every deck, namely because it's a 5 that also has the ability to out basically anything in the same capacity that Eddie used to. Can double as a 5 defender, same reasoning as Rabbit, and also reminder that Foamy is in our pool. So accessing Galaxy Champ is actually not that difficult at all and could really mess up some combat math. One moment, guys, actually. I will be right back. All right, apologies for that, chat. Okay, here we go. But yeah, Foamy is in the pool. That is going to cause some interesting combat math, just because you have the option to Foamy float into Galaxy Champ, which is going to make things a little more complicated, all in all. Galaxair. Out number 2 to Rabbit. Because of the Zeus starter deck, Galaxair is legal for us to use in this. Being able to swap in Elestral's attack and defense basically makes it comparable to Mudlet for this particular event. You can kind of see Galaxair as weaker Eddie in a lot of respects. And also is probably going to be a little bit easier to justify the deck space for it, considering the fact that we've also got Sorlet and Chrysor Champion. These were printed in Firestorm. Of course they are going to be legal for the Firestorm set championship. The current core of Wind Aggro, for the most part, is legal, but it is missing some key pieces, namely that of Sorlet from base set. Sorlet from base set is not legal. Like I said, there are no printed 5s, so you're going to need to rely on some other tools to ensure Sorlet connects here, namely that of Zeus. Zeus is perfectly legal, so you're going to expect that the 3 stat drop is actually going to matter a lot in this respect. Plucky. 4 defense is actually pretty solid right now, just because of, once again, the lack of 5s. The ability to grab Zeus or Poseidon is going to be really good for specific strategies, but I more so think that you're going to be playing it for Zeus. Zeus being able to be grabbed at a whim is going to be really powerful. And the solar inclusion is a lot more justifiable in this particular format because of Plucky Champion, and by extension, Lyre of Apollo. This is the 3rd reliable out to Rabbit. Plucky Champion is going to be one of the most versatile Elestrals in this format. Namely that it can either be straightforward a 5/3. You play it, it's a 1/3, and it searches Lyre. You cast Lyre, swaps it to a 3/1, and then Lyre also boosts it by 2/2, so it becomes a 5/3. And on top of that, it is really hard to mess with that. Just because of Plucky in that regard. The second thing, and what is more interesting, is it also kind of fills the same niche as Galaxair here. You can play the Plucky to search the Lyre onto your opponent's Celestial to swap their attack and defense, kind of like you're playing an Eddie or a Mudlet, and then run it over. Notably, though, that will make your Plucky a 1/3 afterwards, but if you're using it as removal, it's going to be worth it. Is there a full art Plucky or is it in a structure? It was printed in the Poseidon structure. So regular Plucky is legal for that reason. The spirit you invest in the Lyre also is going to be instantly recovered by Plucky Champ. Its effect is anytime you cast a solar rune, you will recover a solar from your underworld. So as long as you have spent one solar rune so far, Plucky Champ is effectively a one-cost 5/3. Or one-cost Mudlet, whatever you want to view it as in that regard. I will say that Plucky Champ is probably going to be one of the most staple pieces that we see in this particular format for those reasons. Spectrus, 5 attacker with suppression. It's going to be very important to have suppression on an attacker because of certain interactions in the format, namely those of Earthscout and Foamy. Earthscout might not be, Earthscout, I should specify. Earthscout might not be that good in Standard, but it is actually kind of decent in a very heavily limited format where bears are a viable option. It is also one of the more reliable 5 attackers that doesn't require much in terms of space. It is its own card, unlike Plucky, which takes 2 deck slots to fill the same role. So Spectrus is going to be played because of that. Alright, that basically covers our staple Elestrals. Moving into staple runes, and I'm going to look you all in the eyes as I tell you this next part. Every single one of the relevant counter runes and invoke runes from Standard are legal in FIRESTORM set championships. Basically everything got reprinted. Aggro, Earthquake, Hurricane, Cryoblast, and Resting. All of them got starter deck reprints. Same with the back row. Tsunami, Poison Tip, Gorgon, Shield, and Altar all got starter deck reprints. The only relevant back row piece that did not get reprinted was Argo. So, have fun with that. I do think that Hurricane is going to be very heavily played in this format specifically because of this. But yeah, all of your main removal tools are also available. You even have Cryoblast, shockingly enough. I don't really know how well Cryoblast is going to play here, but it is a way you can remove a rabbit, so maybe consider it. Even Rise. Yeah, even Rise from the Ashes is legal, which is hilarious to me. Alright, moving into our Divines. We have 4 Divines available. Hestia, Poseidon, Zeus, and Hermes. Divine focus strategies are actually going to be limited to the ones that are here, but honestly, that's pretty solid, all things considered. Like, these are some really good options, especially the fact that we have Zeus still. So, generic good stuff piles can still operate because we have Zeus. But because also that we don't have any of the others, there's a lot of strategies that kind of get knocked out of contention. Basically, every single one of the Elestrals that requires a Divine that was not printed in FIRESTORM is going to be next to useless. I'm talking Pandison and Verdolith Champ. We're basically not gonna. The only Earth spirits that you're going to see in your decks are for the people playing Earthquake and the couple of people who will play Titanostalk Champ as an option in Wind. Oh, actually, never mind. I guess there's also Spine Imp and Spinosect. That's also a really good one. Is there a full FIRESTORM set tournament? When and where? I will go back and I will refresh us all on that near the end of the stream because we covered that at the start. Stadium usage is going to be heavily limited. There are 6 legal stadiums for FIRESTORM set championship, namely those of Arachne's Lair, Phaloi, and Ursaden that were printed, Arachne and Phaloi, which were printed in the set, and then Ursaden, Atlantis, Mount Olympus, and Islands of Aeolia that were printed in the starter decks. I will say Mount Olympus and Atlantis are stadiums you need to be scared of. Legitimately, Thunder and Water are poised to be some of the better strategies because they have the stadiums to back them up. Any deck where I had previously said they don't have access to an easy 5, they don't have access to easy stats, these give them the easy stats that they need. That's why I would definitely be saying Water or Thunder, you're playing your stadium. If you're not playing those if you're not playing a deck that needs one of those stadiums, side deck Feloy Forest Burning Woods. It legitimately can win you a game by just throwing off stat lines. Also, it completely messes up bears, and I think that's hilarious. Arachne's Lair is bad. Just don't play that, period. Ursaden, really solid if you're going to look at doing a bear strategy, or even if you want to consider a bear bomb. We will get into that. Island of Aeolia is, I think, in the weirdest position because wind does not have a whole lot of things that benefit super well from the stat. Like Sorlet Champ goes from a 4 to a 5, but if you're attacking into a 5 defender, that's not going to do enough. It can be there as an option. It is there as an option, but we'll see. We'll have to see. Artifacts are also very heavily limited here. We have 7 of them, but they cap out at a +2 to a stat. Torch of Hestia is going to be your go-to if you need your generic stat value, 2 attack for 1 spirit. Lyre gives really good stats, but only to the Apollo deck, which also, mind you, is missing Apollo. So we'll have to see about that. Also, there's no Argo. If you're playing artifacts, you're playing them the old-fashioned way. So, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to see your artifacts that you want to see if that's what you're looking at doing. All right, first pass at decks to try. This is, like I said, this is not going to be a very long stream. It's going to be under an hour. But I do want to kind of go over this. I'm not going to be providing deck lists, but I will be providing like strategy points that you guys couldn't consider moving forward. I do not count Thunderbolt of Zeus as a real card. I mean, take it at your discretion. I mean, quite frankly, in this format, it's not, because Torch of Hestia does its job, but better. You have to connect with Thunderbolt of Zeus once to even get the same value that you would put into Torch of Hestia. Anyways, decks to try out. We got ourselves bears, and obviously that's Majursa. Every single relevant card for the deck is available. Thank you, Hestia starter deck. So it's mostly intact from standard, and you do still have the access to the massive bomb that is Majursa Champ. Also, though, this is the deck that anytime you mention a set championship in a group, someone in your group is going to go, oh, bears is just the best thing, right? No, it's not. The bear bomb package is really good, but you're also missing the second part of the bear bomb package, which is you need to have some relevant frost package or fire package to play with it to make it worth it. We have none of that. There's no Rhino Sect, there's no Cryovern, there's nothing there. Maybe Nixamera, but I don't think that Nixamera is going to be played as a bear bomb package, just being completely honest, because Frost is missing so many options. So point being is that Bears is a good deck. Bears is going to be solid if you want to play standard Bears. Bears is also going to be a very known quantity, and people know how to play against Bears at this point. So, Bug Snacks. Yeah, so this is going to be the really interesting one. Bug Snacks actually has reliable access to 5s, because Ardbud can search both Viserys, Firestorm, and Spectrus. Yeah, no Narpoon to search Ursicle either. Exactly, Cobalt. You get it. You have a very easy access point to go into Ardvarum if you're playing Arachne's Lair. For those of y'all who don't know the interaction point, Ardbud just can disenchant a spirit from a insectoid card in order to special ascend into Ardvarum. Arachne's Lair is an insectoid card, even though it's a stadium, so that is an option there. This also can pair very nicely if you're wanting to go a Spider's route or a Hermes route, because this can access both sides of that. Bear is still good, promise. Justin, stop. Big cons though to playing Bug Snacks. You don't have Antitan. So even though you do have access to Specter's Champ as well, you have no reliable way to suppress for Specter's Champ. Your options there are Gorgons, Dense Fog, and then a couple of the Champions of Hermes cards, but those will not go off reliably enough for you to really get Specter's Champ off the amount. You also have to spend your normal cast on Ardbud, so it's naturally going to be pretty slow in that regard. All right. Poseidon. So we have access to Majesty Champ and Atlantis completely intact because they did print the original base set Glauby in the Poseidon starter deck. So you do have the ability to go Sluggle Champ, ascend into Glauby, immediate ascend into Majesty Champ. That is an option that is on the table. There's also a lot less reliable Eleals to walk over Majesty. Majesty is a 6 attacker if you're going to be using its suppression. Or not as suppression, it's spirit change off effect. So it is easy to walk over it if you have prep for it. It does mean, though, that Lavalith is going to be a known quantity to walk over your Majesty as well. But if you're playing around the one-off, you're not playing Majesty Champ right. Cons, runes are still fully viable. Earthquake will still ruin your day. Resting, if you're not careful, will still ruin your day. And Thunderstorm is bound to be popular because of Titano Strike Champ. So them going pop your Poseidon is still going to completely ruin it. No Pelicarius is unfortunate. That is true. Kind of glad we don't have Pelicarius, though, because that would make Galaxy Champ even better. You still have Foamy, though, so not really the worst thing in the world. I will say, though I'm not talking about it here, a Water Reanimator direction is definitely worth considering for a Majesty route. That being bringing out Majesty quickly, but keeping it in defense, just as a way to constantly recur back water spirits and fuel your plays, because Rise from the Depths is legal, Atlantis is legal. There are still really powerful options on the table for this strategy. Yes, that's right, Cody. Majesty as a heal control deck can still work for this. No OG Galaxy or Eddy is a pretty big deal for Majesty Turbo. Yes, but there are still really powerful options for water specifically. All right, Zeus. Unironically, I do think that this is going to be the best deck in Firestorm Championships. You have access to Zeus, combat tricks, and rune removal. Mount Olympus makes your Thunders the best beat sticks in the format, and you're natively playing Astrabbit. Now, your cons, though, is that if you're going down the Champion of Zeus route and you want to be doing Gryph and Volt Tempest lines with the Champion of Zeus stuff, you are very heavily reliant on Zeus. Without it, you lose a lot of your deck's innate potential, meaning that you're going to be both relying on Plucky to find your Zeus, and you're going to be praying that your opponent does not play Thunderstorm. Counter stadiums are also bound to be present, so expect your Mount Olympus to get overridden a lot. So, yeah, I do think that this is still the best deck for Firestorm set championships, just off of raw stats alone. Granted, I have not done a whole lot of testing for this at all, but I do think that this is probably going to be up there as one of the best strategies. In a similar vein, we do have Volt Tempest. Classic Volt Tempest is legal because of the Zeus starter deck. There's also not really a good answer to Volt Tempest right now, outside of specifically going Thunderstorm removal piece. It also makes you way more reliant on Zeus than even the previous Zeus deck, because you still have to find Zeus to keep your Volt Tempest up. It is also very prone to bricks, because you're going to be very reliant on Gryph use. I will say, though, this is a deck that I lapped a little bit, and it does look pretty good. I will say, though, if you're gonna do one or the other, go with a previous Zeus. It's more reliable. Hermes. You have access to probably the most robust toolbox set in the entirety of the Firestorm set championship. Yes, Spinosect Outset. Thanks, Josh. Yes, I'm gonna get to. Robust toolbox of options. You got Spinosect, you've got Carry Off, you have Carry On as a swarm tool, you've got Draco Doodle to an extent if you're willing to do the setup. And Trickery lines go super hard with Hermes strategies. Just the fact that you can, specifically with Spinosect, I feel, you can go Spinosect, bounce something, swing in, Trickery to tag it out to the one that's in your underworld already because you did the line to get there, and then it can still bounce something else and keep going. I do think that Trickery lines go really hard. I still think that this deck gets eaten alive by Gorgon's Gaze, and Gorgon's Gaze is still a factor. So, you know, keep that in mind. It's also still really expensive for all of its plays, and all of its powerful plays are very interruptible. Again, the Spinosect line, if you get Gorgons on your Spinymph's Ascension effect, it is the worst feeling in the world. I do think, though, that Hermes has a lot of potential because of its toolbox of options, though. Plus, Wind is looking to be really powerful because of Sorlet. Speaking of which, good stuff. Yeah, stats are a good thing. Stats are very reliable. It's not going to be beholden to a specific game plan, so you don't really feel too bad if your main thing gets answered. This is also super adaptable to your local scene. If you catch wind that your locals is doing something specific to try and play into Firestorm Championship, this is the strategy that is the most moldable to where you can counter specific things. You can also really work your side deck in that regard. Big thing, though, is that unlike pretty much every single deck that we've talked about so far, this deck does not have a game finisher. Almost every deck that we've talked about so far has something that can come down and win the game for you on the spot if it goes off. Good Stuff doesn't. Good Stuff's entire plan is on playing a steady game throughout, making sure that you just have options when you need them. But you're going to be grinding your opponents out most of the time. And it does suffer from a lack of power options. The only two big power plays right now that the deck has access to are Chrysor and Lavalith. So kind of keep that in mind. If your opponent goes into anything that is 2-drop or higher, you might have a little bit of trouble. Nixamera. It's very simple to establish because Bunnix is a 4. And right as we've previously established, 4 is a really good stat line for this particular format. It's also really able to handle back row well because of Risen Form. Being able to go Risen Form, nuke out something is actually really powerful, all things considered. And it's very difficult to stop because of your tag into Fallen Form on your opponent's turn. There isn't an easy answer that you can just use to get rid of it. The big con, though, is that it's slow. You still have a hard ascension point that you have to get off. And on top of that, Frost is missing its best tools in order to keep the strategy from going off the rails. Namely that of you might have Brummelinks, but you do not have access to your stadium. And I apologize, I will be right back once more. All right, I am back once again. Apologies for that. But yes, so Nixamera is able to handle back row well, but it's very slow. You still have to get a hard ascension off to even get the strategy started. And Frost is missing a lot of its best tools, namely that Brumlinks can search Blizzard, but it can't search for Mountains of Boreas because it's not printed in this format. As such, Nixamera is going to be very reliant on things like Exaltus Champ, so when your guy gets run over, you can cast an Exaltus Champ to make sure you have a solar sticking point. There are no real good lunar sticking points outside of maybe Spectrus, so it's going to be kind of hard. You can do something like playing Titanostalk and then misenchanting it with a Frost. Guess you could do the same thing with Galaxy Champ. So you do have options on getting sticking points onto the board, but it is going to be a harder sell than it would be in standard. Champions of Apollo. So this entire strategy is going to be reliant on Plucky and Liar. You're able to go wide. Your stats get spread across the board. Plucky lets you recover your spirits back into your spirit deck, which is really good. But you're missing Apollo. The deck that basically relies on Apollo to get your swarm tools off is missing Apollo. And it's also very reliant on Liar. You don't have access to Argo, so Liar is going to be a lot more difficult to get onto the board in the first place. It's kind of a very dangerous gamble. I do think that Plucky Champ is going to have its place for this current metagame, but I do not think that it's in its own deck. For a game trying to grow, shouldn't we not restrict our card pool for an event? I mean, it's a specialized event that has a specialized prize pool. You don't have to play the event if you don't want to. It's one event out of however many your locals do. I don't think it's that big of a deal. Lunar Nexus. This is going to be my hardest sell for everyone here. It is very fast burn. If you stick a Tarot Star, you're going to be able to just bounce lunar spirits back and forth so quickly that allows you to just burn out your opponent. This can be backed up with Eruption because Eruption was printed as a full art. The biggest thing though is that there is not a Lunar Nexus bank. You're going to be very reliant on misenchanting your runes in order to start this up, and that's going to lead to very heavy bricking. So this is definitely a deck that I would only consider if you are truly like jonesing for a big option. Something though that I do think is really funny is you can go Tarot Star Nexus onto something with a Lunar Spirit, ascend over that point now for Like a Void Champ and flood the board. I do think that that's really funny. I don't think it's good, but I do think it's funny. And I do think that this strategy could be explored for this. I didn't want Lunar to be completely left out. Big takeaways though from this. Your rune options are next to perfect. You've basically got whatever you want in terms of your invokes and your counters. Your only real concession points are truthfully going to be your stadiums, which not even really that concession-y, and your artifacts. Artifacts did kind of get shafted here. Start with your stats in mind to help craft optimal decks. Make sure you are using your Elestrals that are good stats. Astrabbit, Galaxy Champ, Plucky Champ to an extent. I do think that you have really good options if you want to go generic with your stuff. Consider your local scene, what they're going to be bringing when you're constructing your sideboard. When there's limited options, there's not really a whole lot you have to consider prepping for. Off the top of my head, I would make sure that I have a plan in mind for Bears, for Zeus, and Poseidon. Past that, I think that there's really like only so many different ways things can go. Keep an ear to the ground on your local scene. And have fun with it. Limited formats are often, limited formats lead to a lot of good skill expression. This is bound to be another one of those. And quite frankly, I thoroughly enjoy limited formats because they allow for such vastly different experiences compared to standard. I've heard a lot of complaints recently that standard is kind of becoming unfun. And this is a great way to kind of pivot from that for a little bit. But yeah, with that said, that is the end of my presentation. We're going to back this up here so that we can show it again. For those of y'all who are wanting to do one of the FIRESTORM set championships, the locations and days are listed on the screen now. Look for your local game scene. I'm sure that most stores that have a large enough player base have signed up to do a FIRESTORM championship, or a store in the area has signed up to do this. For example, my store, Gigabytes Cafe, is actually hosting the very first one. Though my other store, Cards HQ, is not hosting it, they are hosting the Atlanta Open, so kind of understandable that they didn't want to do two things back to back. But yeah, this is kind of going to be our focus for the month of July in terms of what big organized play options there are for Elestrals outside of the Atlanta Open, because I don't know if y'all are aware, but premieres have basically been put on a pause until August because they don't want to detract from the Atlanta Open. We'll also be doing an Atlanta Open prep stream here probably in like the next week or so. I'm still working that out, trying to get all the data points for it. But with that said, like I said, it's going to be a short stream, under an hour. Thank y'all for coming out for this. This was just a quick presentation of what I've got kind of cooking for FIRESTORM set championships. Hopefully y'all got some good ideas, got a good understanding of it, and yeah, hope to see y'all again soon. Take care.